Our narrative is set in the severe cold of January, the height of winter. The world was blanketed in a thick, cold calm outside, but my thoughts were far from idle. My son, Caleb, a superb artist who had just turned 19, was immersed in a world of paintings and drawings depicting human beings in incredible movement and passion. His hideaway was his studio and a portion of our home that he had claimed. The turbulent refuge of canvases, brush jars, and paint streaks reflected his passion and determination. That morning, I sat with a warm cup of coffee, covered in a thick robe to insulate myself from the persistent cold that permeated our kitchen throughout the winter. Caleb had been up late the night before, and I lacked the confidence to wake him up. I was lost in meditation while staring out the frost-covered window when I heard the steps creak. I had become accustomed to greeting him with good morning. Mother. Caleb greeted me with a steady, strong voice. He carried a cup of tea in one arm and a canvas in the other. His eyes shone with inspiration, yet his hair was untidy, and his face showed symptoms of drowsiness. As he gently laid the canvas on the counter, I replied, "Good morning, sweetheart." His passion, even in the middle of winter, brought a smile to my face. "Did you get any sleep last night?" I questioned. As he shrugged, he smiled sheepishly. "I was really working on something. Would you want to see?" I nodded, fascinated. He turned the canvas toward me, revealing a picture that made me gasp because it was so visceral and vivid. The work focused on a figure in soft light, with a pose that blended power and vulnerability. The piece's depth and tenderness were impressive, well above his years. "It's wonderful. Caleb," I said genuinely, "you have a special talent?" He turned aside, clearly embarrassed by the comment, and his cheeks reddened. "Regards." "Mom, I couldn't have achieved it without your aid," he admitted. We had a strongly felt but unspoken understanding. Despite being a decent guy, my spouse was often gone from us for work or hobbies. His absence remained silently throughout my life, but I gradually accepted it. Later that day, curiosity overpowered me, and I went to Caleb's studio to look around. Caleb stroked his brush with seamless accuracy as he stood in front of another canvas. His focus seemed to resonate in the air. He offered me a gentle grin when he saw me. His gaze gently captured me. He taunted me about what I was currently working on. Attracted. I entered the room. The air smelled like paint and turpentine, and the winter sunshine shining through the window cast a golden glow on his workspace. He stepped aside to showcase his artwork, which is a study of hands in various poses that express different emotions. As I gazed at the intricacy, I said, "They're beautiful." He turned to face me and whispered, his gaze steadfast, "I've been considering starting a series that employs the human body to investigate different emotions. The idea sounds wonderful." I stated I was genuinely amazed. "You always seem to notice things that others don't." An unspoken understanding passed between us for a brief moment, causing his features to relax. I had already seen a slight connection that went beyond the conventional parent-child interaction. It reminded me how much we depended on one another, especially while his father wasn't around. The winter days have passed, intermingled with our shared warmth in the middle of the cold and Caleb's expanding portfolio. But as we became closer, I couldn't help but wonder about the boundaries we drew in our relationships and how admiration and love blended quietly. There was no denying it. Caleb was more than just my kid. He was an exceptional young guy who filled a void in my life. That night was peaceful and motionless, like a January night when the world was still due to darkness and snow. My husband had gone bowling with friends, as he often did, leaving Caleb and me alone in a house that seemed more comfortable without him. That day, Caleb had paid close attention, creating short but thoughtful recalebs while we went about our everyday routine. "You are conscious of your personality, Mom." I was standing in the kitchen, preparing supper. When he said that, I grinned curiously as I turned to face him. His lips twisted into a trade Caleb smile as he leaned casually against the doorway. "You have a knack for making any setting seem like home." He mentioned how uncommon that is. I silently chuckled, dismissing his recalebs as light-hearted praise from his kid. But they warmed my insides. The warm, honest tone made me feel understood beyond the words. Later that night, Caleb emerged from his studio with a box as I sat by the fire reading a magazine. His smile was almost childish, and his black eyes shone with enthusiasm. He placed the box on the coffee table in front of me and said, "Mom, I have an idea. What's this?" I was curious and inquired. He took a step back, hands in pockets, and encouraged her to open it. When I lifted the box, I saw a magnificent crimson satin robe that sparkled in the soft light like liquid fire. I gave a gasp. "What is this for?" Caleb, despite his solemn face, he shrugged. "I've been considering starting a new series of pictures that are personable rather than distant or chilly. I want to portray comfort, elegance, and well-being. Allow me to paint you, please." My heart was pounding with the idea of becoming his subject. As I looked at the robe, I was both delighted and nervous. "Would you want me to wear this?" His tone was sincere, and he nodded. "You would look fantastic in that outfit, but only for the portrait." I paused for a second before consenting. His proposal had an attraction that was too strong to refuse. His face lit up with desire. "Okay," I whispered. "Let's get started." His enthusiasm was contagious, and his grin broadened. "Okay, I'll set it up while you put it on." My hands shook slightly as I slid into the robe and carried the package upstairs. The silk stretched lightly over my body, feeling cold across my flesh. It was undeniably gorgeous. I felt a burst of confidence when I looked in the mirror. Caleb had rearranged the living room by the time I returned. In the center, lighted by the fire's flickering glow, sat a chair draped in a warm wool blanket. He had his easel near a blank canvas, ready to paint his concept. "You look beautiful," he replied. He expressed his admiration in a subdued tone. After a brief stare, he shook his head and pointed to the chair. "Take a seat here and relax." The feel of the blanket helped soothe my worries as I sank into the chair. Caleb glanced from me to the canvas and began painting with confident, practiced strokes. He taunted, "Hold still. You do not find it tough. You are naturally elegant." I shook my head, chuckling softly. "Caleb, you are too much." He caught my gaze and said, "No, really, Mom, you are lovely. I only hope my artwork adequately portrays you." His recalibs instilled in me a strong sense of pride and vulnerability that I was not yet prepared to confront. I stayed silent, letting the sound of his brush and the crackling of the fire fill the silence between us. The tone altered as the evening progressed. A subtle yet profound connection that transcended verbal words developed. Caleb's kindness drew me in as his taunts softened and his praises got more personal. "Do you remember when I was little and would sketch you with crayons?" he inquired suddenly, pausing in the midst of his sentence. "Regardless of how harmful they were, you always retained them." The remembrance made me grin. "They weren't terrible," he chuckled softly, his eyes kind. "They were valuable because they came from you. You have always been my favorite topic, not only for artwork, but in general." His remarks carried significant weight, causing my cheeks to flush. His speech had depth, giving me a feeling of recognition and value that I hadn't felt in years. When he finished, he stepped back and examined the canvas closely. "Done." He spoke proudly. I moved to the picture on the other side of the room. It was great. The photo depicted me in a satin robe, which was wrapped nicely over my shoulders and illuminated by the warm glow of the fire. However, the impact went beyond mere technical proficiency. He had grasped something deeper, an essence that I was unaware I had. I remarked, my voice filled with passion, "It's lovely. Thank you." Caleb turned to face me with a serious gaze. "I appreciate all you have done." As I lay in bed that night, I kept thinking about the artwork and Caleb's stare at me. Although we had always had a tight friendship, it seemed like something was emerging, becoming deeper and more intricate. It was both unsettling and comforting. As I awoke, the warm morning light sent a golden glow through the draperies. The scent of freshly made coffee hit me before I could gather my thoughts. When I opened my eyes, I saw Caleb standing at my bedside, smirking teasingly. He held a warm cup in one hand and a single flower in the other, a beautiful, uncomplicated morning muse. He taunted in an affectionate tone, "I believed that today you deserved a bit of extra pampering." Even though I was still half asleep, I smiled because I was delighted by his thoughtfulness. I sat up and muttered, "You are spoiling me," while he placed the coffee on the nightstand. "That's the idea," he replied, handing me the flower as I sat on the side of the bed. As he scrutinized me, his expression softened, and his gaze lingered in a manner that made my pulse skip a beat. "Mom, you've inspired me. Never in my life have I felt more connected." His candor broke through my customary composure, leaving me stunned when he mentioned my job or someone. He grabbed my hand and gently kissed it before I could respond. "There's more to come," he replied in a joking tone again. "I have a surprise for you tonight, but please keep the door to the studio locked. If Dad notices, let's just say he won't comprehend his words," which causes my heart rate to rise as dread and excitement merge in my chest. "What kind of surprise?" My voice was weaker than I intended when I asked. Caleb stood up, laughing. "You will see. I have a few items to acquire first, but you will like it. I swear." He then left, leaving me with the coffee, the daisy, and a slew of emotions I wasn't quite prepared to handle. I kept replaying his words, actions, and the way he'd looked at me all day. I felt conflicted and giddy, like I were a teenager with a crush. Caleb was not an ordinary guy. He was my son, but the way he noticed and handled me made me feel like a woman again, rather than just a wife or mother. My exhilaration only grew as the evening progressed. To keep myself busy, I prepared supper, sipped 2 glasses of wine, and tried not to think about what may happen that night. My heart was pounding by the time I got to Caleb's studio. I pushed open the door, and it creaked, and there he was, surrounded by the well-known tangle of paint and canvases. He seemed different, but with more confidence and self-assurance. He held a little red box with a vivid hue that gleamed in the light. "I've been expecting your arrival." His voice was appealing and low when he talked. "Enter." He motioned to a chair in the center of the room, and I entered, locking the door behind me. The environment was pleasant, with a soft hum of music in the background and the faint scent of paint still permeating the air. He gave me the package, and I grew more curious. His eyes shone with eagerness as he encouraged them to open it. I lifted the box with trembling fingers and saw a sleek leather costume, black underwear, cat ears, and even a little tail. Unsure how to respond, I gazed up at him. My cheeks reddened. He stated simply and genuinely, "You are my muse. I want to show you as courageous, fearless, and unapologetic." Feeling the gravity of the situation, I hesitated, but I couldn't say no to his unwavering confidence and adoration. I took the package, nodded slowly, and returned behind the screen he had created in the corner. The leather adhered to my skin as I undressed, making me feel both vulnerable and powerful. When I finally came out, Caleb's reaction was quick. His eyes expanded slightly, and a gradual grin came on his face. "You're great," he murmured calmly, motioning for me to sit down again. His work was flawless. 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 He maneuvered his easel, the music, and the lights with the precision of an expert. He then began drawing, moving with purpose and focus. Except for a faint scrape of charcoal on paper and Caleb's occasional word of praise, the room was quiet. I saw him working his hands steadily, his forehead wrinkled in concentration. He examined every curve and shade on me as if I were the most intriguing topic he'd ever seen. The way he stared at me had a highly intimate quality to it. The borders between us seemed to blur as the hours passed. Caleb became more confident in giving praises and was gentler and more affectionate in his teasing. Even though I knew we were going too far, I couldn't bring myself to stop him or the feelings that were surging inside me. When he finally set down his tools, I realized our connection was unbreakable. He approached me, peered into my eyes, and murmured in a barely audible whisper, "I'm glad you trusted me and let me see you." He said I was overwhelmed with emotion, but I couldn't find the right words. Rather, I stretched my arm to grab his hand and gripped it tightly, despite the fact that neither of us truly comprehended it. We couldn't deny the delicate but strong feeling of the moment. I relived every phrase, "Look," and detail as I lay in bed that night. Something had altered between us, deepened in ways that I couldn't quite pinpoint. even though I had no clue where this would go. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was entering something new and entirely unknown. My phone vibrated quietly on the nightstand, interrupting my thoughts. I saw a note from Caleb as I reached for it. "Come to me. Sleeping is hard for me." I read the words, and their profundity was crammed into their simplicity. My breath caught. My heart raced as I evaluated my possibilities. However, my feet dragged me down the corridor to his studio before I could stop myself. Except for the soft creak of the hardwood flooring under my boots, the house was silent. When I opened the door, I found Caleb sitting on the edge of the sofa, his hands tightly clutched in his lap. As I went in, he looked up at me, his eyes filled with vulnerability and hope. "Mom," his voice was hardly heard as he began. "Do you feel it?" I must know. How do I proceed? I couldn't breathe for a while as his words hung in the air. I couldn't lie to him because I knew what he was asking, even if I attempted to keep it from myself. His eyes held such unwavering honesty. "Yes," I said gently, my voice trembling. "Yes, I do." His face brightened up with relief, and he stood up, taking little steps closer to me. His voice was filled with passion as he added, "You were always more than just my mother. For me, you were everything." As his arms wrapped me and drew me into a hug, I felt as if the world had gone and there were just the two of us. I closed my eyes, overwhelmed by the intensity of the situation. He hesitated and moved back slightly, his hands on my shoulders. "I've got an idea." He claimed his tone was lighter and more lighthearted. "Let's do something nice for us while Dad sleeps." "What are you saying?" My curiosity led me to inquire. With sly glints in his eyes, he said, "The paint treatment is about utilizing color and touch to express emotion." It's about utilizing color and touch to express emotion. The paint treatment is something I've wanted to attempt for a long time, and I can't imagine doing it with anybody other than you. I was shocked by the idea, but his earnest tone made me accept it. "All right," I replied. My lips are twitching into an anxious smile. Show Me Caleb's face lit up with eagerness, and he began gathering things straight away. A large roll of canvas bottles with multicolored paint and floor-covering cloths. He discussed the technique as he worked, full of contagious excitement. He placed the canvas in the center of the room and said, "Just let go." He acted solely on instinct, without hesitation or restrictions. He poured the paint directly onto the canvas, resulting in mesmerizing patterns of vibrant red, blue, and gold streaks flowing together. Then he turned and extended his hand to me. "Should we—" After a moment's hesitation, I placed my hand in his. He brought me over to the canvas, where we smeared the paint with our fingers. We first painted each other's hands and arms in a humorous fashion, using laughing and color streaks. But as the evening progressed, it took on a darker tone. Caleb stroked intricate patterns on my flesh with his hands. Moving slowly and methodically, his eyes met mine, and he muttered, "You're all gorgeous." My cheeks heated, but I leaned into his contact, allowing the moment to unfold rather than pushing away. I stretched out and traced a golden line over his collarbone, seeing the paint sparkle against his flesh. The glimmer of lighting, the subtle murmur of music, and the warmth of our friendship permeated the space. Every time he touched me and we stared at each other, the distance between us appeared to disappear. We lay side by side on the canvas at the conclusion of the session, our bodies covered in vibrant color swirls. Caleb gave me a loving look. He just remarked, "Thank you for being here and trusting me." I smiled wholeheartedly. There's no other place I'd rather be. I returned to my room and slept in bed that night, revisiting every scene in my mind. Caleb was more than just my kid. He was somebody of great strength, fervor, and energy. I couldn't deny the power of our bond, despite the unconventional path we had followed.